Welcome back. You're watching Signature TV here, Signature Morning, and you know this happens every single weekday mornings, and of course we'll have a new day on Saturday and Sunday from 7 a.m. all the way till 11 a.m. We have several issues we discuss and bring you up to speed, and we also urge you to join in the conversation on all our social media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. It's all Signature Television. We're live today. We're going to be talking about the gap between the leadership and the led. Over the years, we've seen how leaders and leadership across African continents may have emerged. Some, would claim that they bought there. Some would fight their ways into, becoming leaders by all means. And some other times you would think whether even the led have a say in people who lead them. To help us unravel and talk about these issues is a management consultant who is vast in economic decisions and even procuring of leadership. We have Mr. Augustine Okoli. Good to have you. Good morning, sir.
It's my pleasure. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We'll just go straight to the point. Do you think that every single person who in any way found themselves in the position of people that are being led deserve the kinds of leaders that they have?
Well, thank you for that intelligent question. I believe that we have leadership from the top to the bottom. We have different levels of leadership, even down to the family. The father is the head of the family. The group of, first of all, is leading the wife. The wife is supporting, then you have children, then you go to the society. So if you're a leader, you have to have a follower. If you don't have a follower, you're taking a walk. So if you're a leader, you have those attributes of a leader. Attributes of visionary. You have commanders are different from leaders. In the military, you have commanders, have commander-in-chief, have battalion commanders, and so on. But in our society, we have leaders who became leaders from what they do. People, the followers, their preachments, their preaches, and what they do. So people follow you because they are convinced, out of conviction, out of what they see you do. Or those who preach what they don't practice, or those who practice what they don't preach. So, if you are leading, you must be above board, you must be visionary. You must, be more knowledgeable, you must have strength of character, you must have capacity to take risks and break new grounds. So, talk about mentoring, talk about those who want to guide. They don't lead by force. You don't lead people by coercion. So you lead people from example. So leadership is a concept used when somebody, a father figure, somebody who can guide others, who have various features and characteristics of being a leader. So
at all
some
levels,
people pretend to be leaders. Some people impose themselves.
At all levels,
Yes.
do you think that people deserve the kind of leadership that they have?
Sometimes they do not deserve what they have because some of the leaders, like we know, impose themselves on the people and they begin to impose their decisions and their will on the people.
If you don't impose, how do you impose yourself without the help of the people who have been led?
No, in military push, when the military took over government, you can't stop them because you can't argue with the man with the gun. Also, like we talk about leadership recruitment process in a civilian, space, in a civilian ecosystem. Some people come through ballot by default. So when the recruitment process is flawed, some people find themselves in the position of leadership. And you see the qualification, what they show. Sometimes you see what we call trust deficit. So the people may not be able to help themselves. There may be constitutional provisions of how to bring out those who did not meet their expectations of what they promised before they got to power. So, but those are clumsy processes like recall, like impeachment, and so on. They are constitutional obstacles. As for the people recalling somebody who they trusted initially, ab initio, got to power, and visit the people with hardship, visit people with lack of care. Because you lead when you show empathy, you show sympathy, you guide, you shine the light, you become a beacon. So the people will now trust you, they have confidence in you, they will follow you. They will follow you, like you see some leaders, some iconic leaders in the past. These current leaders all over the world, you can see that there's a kind of deficits.
Nigeria is our case in point. Now, how would you evaluate the leadership and followership that happens in Nigeria? How would you what's your reaction towards the gap between the leadership and followership in Nigeria?
Well, if you want to segment it, let me say from 1970, after the Civil War, to 1975, that's during the military, and up to the point of 1998, when we had a transition from the military to the civilians. Then, what was in vogue was that even the worst civilian government is better than a military government for some other reasons. But you see civilian leaders, like in Nigerian context, if you look at our constitution, which is the guiding light, which is the sacred book of memorandum of understanding, or the contracts between the leaders and the led, it becomes a zero sum. Because even the constitution, the people are denying participation, making of that constitution, which is an anomalous situation. Because people make their constitution, agree on it, sign it, and it will guide them in their daily lives. But in Nigerian situation, there's a call for restructuring of the polity, because structure is very, very important. And since the structure is defective, it can hardly get something good from a defective structure.
What would you actually attribute the defective structure from? Would you say, because beyond the leaders leading the way they are leading, the followers, do you think they've actually contributed by being complacent or aiding and abetting the kind of leading they are getting from their leaders?
Well, if you talk about the followers, whether they're compromised, whether they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you have to work according to the law, the constitutional provisions, the guardians of the constitution, those who have sworn to protect and project and live and abide by the constitution. That's those who are entrusted with power. Then the people have no reason not to trust them. But when you see those trusts and confidence waning, when you see those they imposed or reposed confidence in disappointing, then the people are left with despondency. They are left hopelessly. They have weaponized poverty. The leaders have weaponized poverty. So they use poverty to guide, because you have to eat before you go and protest against a bad government. And the led, it takes two to tango, the leaders and the led. The contributions of the leaders in a polity, whether in economy, in politics, and other spheres of life, is about 20%. But the followers have enormous responsibility in what goes on in the leadership ecosystem. The followers are not complacent, particularly in Nigerian situation. They have been cowed. The followers have been pauperized. They have been cheated. They have lied against them that they also made the constitution.
Well,
they did not make the constitution that we are being governed with. So they lied They say we Nigerians made this constitution, but the people are saying it did not make. We did not participate. So you can see from the inception, the deceit, elite deceit, have begun long time ago.
Well, in some other part of the world, you know, you see people, followers, citizens question their government. But here in Nigeria, it seems the case is reversed. You know, you said that they were not part of, they were not included in the constitution, and we're working with the same constitution that doesn't include us. How do you justify that?
You see, if we go back down the memory lane, you see that even the military was not as deceitful, as cunning, as, unempathetic like the civilians. What we have seen, the experience, the observation I've made.
Yes.
When I was in the school, university school, 88, 87, 90, during the military, civilians came out vociferously to contest, to question, and to challenge the military. The idea of transition that was prolonged, the people challenged it. They went to the street. Some of them were shot, some of them were killed, but it was an inclusive decision to protest against the military administration.
Yeah.
Now, because of the flawness, because of the way the constitution was made, because of the concept of poverty and pauperization of the people, they become beggarly. They become, poverty was weaponized. So that's why Nigerians are beggarly. But you can see during the NSAS, the protest, it was not essentially NSAS alone. That was a severe and a very, very strong statement to protest against what is going on in the country.
What factors for you are responsible for this continuous, division between the leadership and the led? Are there specific factors that is leading to this so-called dichotomy?
Yes. The problem is that we have civilians coming from Obasanjo 1999, through Yar'Adua, Jonathan, Buhari, and the incumbent administration. The problem is that, one, the constitution is flawed. The executive have so much powers. The president of Nigeria, I dare say, is more powerful than the American president.
How so?
Because the powers that the constitution conferred on the president, the constitution made by the military, kind of gave them that gap, that political power, that the president continues to be numero uno. That even the judiciary and other arms of government like the legislative arm have been put in their pockets. They control them. They say the president will say who is going to be the Senate president. The president is, influences who becomes the Speaker of House. So you can imagine the president influences who appoints who is the Chief Justice, the judicial arm. So because of that, even the governors are also so powerful that the people are left forlorn. The people have nowhere to run to. Because in the three-tier system they have created, the third tier is nowhere to be found. That is the local government. The governors determine everything. You see, when I say poverty was weaponized, many people may not understand. When you are poor, you can only contest or challenge government to a limited point. And they even shoot people who are protesting. Okay. In other climes, the strongest weapon of the people is to challenge them in the streets. And that may be the last resort of challenge. Because whatever you do beyond that may be treason. But even the protest, they don't allow them to protest. So I don't know what you expect the people to do.
Okay, looking beyond the government, just look around your ordinary firms, your ordinary companies, organizations, and anybody, most people in the position of leadership have way of I'm trying to find a way not
muzzling
to
them on
yes, trying to they mismanage the position. What we get most of the time is people who wants to enslave other people, and whenever they see maybe there is a follower who is bright, they try to impede such growth
and stifle the person's.
Do you understand? So beyond government and citizens' leadership, I mean, ordinary firms,
In a broader
organization, and all
perspective,
that. So what's actually constitutes that?
Well, there are a lot of factors. One is that we still suffer a hangover of military interregnum in the past.
You think that's what's affecting
It's
us in
one
our
of
individual
the,
firms
one of the factors.
and even some families?
One of the factors. You see, this mentality thing, this psyche, command and control system, with immediate effect, the military way of doing things, obey the last command. That's why I said earlier that commander is different from a leader. They say obey the last order. So, and constitutionality takes the back seat. Because in other climes, it's the rule of law. It's constitution that is very strong. We have more criminals abroad, in the United Kingdom, in America,
Yes.
Switzerland. But the severity of the law, the law here is weak because of the implementation. Who is the custodian? Who commands the police? Who commands the military? The president has so much powers that even a governor, some of the governors are kidnapped in their states. It has happened in the past.
You're pointing a very hopeless situation. You said that when people who are led, they are actually those who can hold accountable governments to some extent. There's a certain extent that they can go because they are poor, because poverty has been weaponized by the leadership. In this situation, how do you think that those who are led can hold people accountable, so much so they go the whole hog? Since if they go out to protest, they will be shot. If they try to go to court, the judges will be bribed. I mean, you've painted the glimpse.
It's not a case of
situation.
painting. That's the reality.
So then how do people then hold people accountable, especially as it concerns leadership and the followers?
You see, they pray to God.
You just pray.
They pray. That's what is going on now. I'm not saying that is the ideal.
What's the ideal?
If I should recommend,
yes,
I should recommend a whole overhaul of the entire system. It's the rule of law that should guide everybody. But you can see the breaches, even for those who are supposed to be custodians of the rule of law, of the provisions of the law. The president, the governor, members of the National Assembly are supposed to, at least, they say they have checks and balances. But you can see there's no checks and balances. There's a single president who's in control of the judiciary, who's in control of the legislative arm, and also in control of the armed forces and security agencies. So, that's why I painted a gloomy picture of that the governor, once upon a time, was kidnapped. Even when he has police orderlies and so on, was kidnapped in his state.
By the government?
By the government, by those who have influence from the central government. So you can see that the constitution, the implementation of the law is flawed. And you do not carry such powers and give to a human being. Because they say absolute power corrupts.
Absolutely.
So that is what is going on until the law of Nigeria is changed. Remember, we are running a federal system of government. The federalism we are running is a fake one. It's not how federalism is run. So, according to the concept of federalism,
yes,
federating units, the federating units, cohabit, work in tandem. The power is decentralized. The power is, what you can see in Nigerian situation, the laws, the one they call exclusive lists, the one they say the concurrent list, state and federal government, the residual list is no longer to be found anywhere. So they just usurp the powers. Survival of the fittest, like the jungle.
Do you think civil society organizations have a role to play in this?
They're having a role to play to the extent that they can, because they should only use either mobilizing the people, giving orientation to the people, and maybe going to judiciary to challenge the status quo.
So do you?
But you can see that when you come, you see loopholes in the law. You see escape routes from the law.
Okay.
Then, if you cannot have confidence, they say the judiciary is the last hope of a common man. It is no longer the last hope of a common man. You can see a chief judge in a party proclaiming a preference for a political party. Court pans down, trying to say, oh, you are in this party, you are in a good position. I'm sure.
So
my governor, thank you for being in this particular group. I saw him say that, the chief law officer.
Which of the chief law officers have been
I'm sure that you belong to the press. You should investigate and find out
okay,
which of the law officers. These are the common things we see.
So with what you said, do you think that increasing transparency and accountability will close the gap between leadership and
first of all, you have
followership?
to get orientation. You have to have proper orientation from family, from school, from the society. You lack orientation. You see, during the military, I once worked with the National Orientation Agency. So what they did was to create that agency and domicile it in the presidency so that they have a little bit of freedom to give orientation, to mobilize the society, to talk to them, to give public enlightenment, to, draw down the government agencies, the government activities and actions so that they now cascade them to the people, interpret them in various languages. They have offices even in the local government, 774 local governments. But when the civilians came, they took it to the ministry. They became subservient. I think they are now under units. They are no longer even agency. So they don't even get funding. They don't get motivation. They don't get training again. So they are kind of fizzling out. Nobody even knew the enormous responsibilities, the duties and roles they should have been playing in oiling the system. But you can see what they do. Even the military couldn't have just come and say, subsidy is gone. The military were scared to do that because they know the implication that Nigerians cannot be lacking what they produce. They cannot be begging what they have. You feed from what you have, eat what you produce, and produce what you eat. So why should we be begging? And the people will be telling us that international oil price, naira going up, dollar coming down. At least if you produce pure water, they cannot lack water. You drink water first.
So what long-term strategies do you think we should adopt to ensure a stronger
if you allow me
connection?
to recommend,
Yes.
first of all, there should be general orientation among the led and the leadership. Because some of them, somebody called himself emergency leader. The governor declared that, oh, I happened by accident. I am a governor by accident. I'm an emergency leader. So because he was not expecting it, somebody was going for Senate who became president. I want to become senator. I cannot be president, but situation, circumstances, treat him, he became president. Most of the presidents we had in the past were not prepared to be president. They were thrown up by circumstances of our environment because we are yet to become a nation. There is no binding factor. There are a lot of cleavages in the polity. Tribalism, religion, ethnicity. So we need to have a very strong law. The constitution needs to be overhauled. You cannot run away when you don't have proper structure. In structure will put you in your place. No matter how you try, you can only be laboring in vain if you don't have the proper, So those who are calling for restructuring know what they are saying. But some people are pretending they don't understand what is restructuring because it is further than their nest. They are enjoying what is going on. Remember, when they went for the independence, some people say, no, we are not ready. We don't have the manpower. We don't have schools. We are not trained, but we have the numbers. So the other people considered everything so that we'll just come and become one. Today, the same people are now saying, you cannot. Remember, they are the first people who even wanted to run away from government. They felt they cannot participate. They can't contest. They cannot contest. They cannot, join issues with those who have the military. Remember, after the independence, it was the South, particularly the Southeast, that have the trained military hardware, the hardcore military, the infantry, the intelligence, graduates in the military, in the civil service, in commerce. So the other people, our brothers, up north, they were mainly, majority of them were nomads, headers. So they felt that if you come together, they will not be able to blend properly. That for the first time, I saw people who were given independence and they rejected it. They said, we are not ready. We could have gotten independence before Ghana, but it was a kind of suspended. And when we got it, there were people who always want to leave until the military came, until the 1966-67 push and the counter coup. And they now took good position. And they are now running away from restructuring. And they want now running away from putting things in place.
Right.
So you see the irony of who is benefiting.
Even the restructuring, so many persons have flawed it because, I mean...
I did not see any flaw there.
I mean, if restructuring would mean regional government if you actually by your...
No, you see, that is the wrong thing.
Okay, so
when you restructure now, for instance,
restructuring?
the legislative arm, we cannot afford bicameral system, having Federal House of Representatives and the Senate. When you restructure, we cut costs of governance. Restructure is to change, to reform. Restructuring is not just...
How do you administer the government of Nigeria?
First of all, you have to create a constitution that will take care of our diversity. That's why they ran to this federalism. That's why they ran to the kind of democracy. There's a parliamentary system, which was even much better, whereby it is like a part-time. Executive members are recruited from when you win an election. Then the members of the secretaries or ministers will now be recruited from among the legislative house. So, but because of the cross-carpeting, only because people can cross-carpet, you win an election tomorrow, people can move in the night and come to my party, and you now become minority. So, in order to curb that, they use, sledgehammer to kill mosquito. You can still find a way to stop cross-carpeting, because that was the reason they said, let us try this kind of presidential system. Presidential system is not only expensive, unaffordable at this level of our growth. Parliamentary system is still better, can still be tried. The power is given to, we want to copy America. America is #1 in the world, both in wealth, in strength, and in patriotism. We are yet to find patriotic Nigerians.
Some people think that the government we actually did run between 1960 and 1966 was actually better. So much.
That's the golden years now. We know.
The regional administrators took over charge of their resources in the regional level, that then pay something to the center. Do you think that's a better form of?
That is how to run a federal system. That is how, if we go to Canada, Australia, go to UK, they don't distribute palliatives. They don't dash state government's money. They don't give them, what is happening here. Every month, you go cap in hand, waiting to be money to be shared. You work hard in your various states, generate revenue, and contribute a percentile to the center. And you run according to your strength. You now become creative and innovative. You now want to compete. Competitiveness will come in. Then you have quality, merit. That is what drives a nation. That's the case of some people who are sleeping and waiting for the month to end, so they get their share. They will now squander it. I don't know whether I watched there was a documentary called The Squandering of the Riches. I think Onyeko, one of the Blessed Memory, also was very, very key. If you watch that film, that was far back in the 80s, 90s. It is now that the riches are being squandered.
What
it is now that between 1999, if they tell you how much that was allocated, we are now making our budget in trillions. We can now use a barrow load to carry naira and we will not buy anything.
Seeing that we have a younger generation that is growing and is agitated towards this governance and this gap, what role do you think the younger generation can play in bridging this gap?
Well, before I will now assign any role to them, they need to get some education. You have to go to school so that you have depth. You can maybe argue with logic. You can argue with substance. They will now know your rights. You now know the limits of power. You now know the limits of citizens and citizen engagement, citizen participation in government. Because it's not a case of just wake up and come and jump into the streets. Some people are protesting, don't even know why they are protesting and what they want in government. So, but if you are knowledgeable enough, if you are literate enough, you can be able to know the difference between black and white. You can be able to know what we call color differentials. Because some people who suffer from color blindness will call everything black or white. But you can still see different other colors within the ecosystem. So the youths need to get proper basic education first, get proper orientation. Then they can also participate in governance. They can also do other things. They must not have PhD. Must not go to university. Training and education is not go to university, get BSc, get masters, and so on. There are people who need only city and girls, technical school. People who need, technological certificates. There are those who need what is it called, diploma. There are those who need, bachelors. You have people who can only be artisans to do things. In Nigeria today, we don't have, it is people from Ghana, Togo, Lome, they come and do our tiles, paint our houses, do our roofing. Nobody is learning technical skills again. The orientation is bad. And you need a good leader to guide the people. Nobody is guiding us. Nobody is guiding Nigerians. So even the youths cannot be blamed because they're coming from the nowhere, going to nowhere.
I know we might not be able to exhaust this, but in a nutshell, what is your vision for the future relationship between leadership and followership in Nigeria? And is there any emerging leader that you see that is that you think is successfully or will successfully bridge the gap between the leadership and followership in Nigeria?
You see, we need a leader that will talk to us. A leader who will share our pains. That's a leader who will now be empathetic, first of all. Not who will unleash hardship and live in opulence and splendor. I mean, telling us to tighten our belts when he's getting out of shape, out of what he gets from government, feeding fat from the poverty of the people. I want to see a future where Nigerians have basic education. Do you know how many millions of Nigerians that are out of school, particularly in the north? Do you know the morbidity rates of mother and child, particularly in the north? You know that some people don't care. They just, continue breeding children and they go to Amajiri school only to end up begging in the streets. So you have to get basic education. You have to have infrastructure on the ground. You have to have people who are young and youthful and vibrant. You don't need people who are sleeping in conferences. You don't need people who are above 70s trying to pretend and, oversee a Nigerian situation. You can see the kind of leaders we had in the past. And they want to cling to power, whether they are doing well or not. You see what is going on in Kenya? Even when Ruto was promising, he came deviated. The people say, go. Ruto must go. That is this one song there. In our case, even the National Assembly, they approve everything that was brought to them because it's for mutual benefit. They will mutually share whatever they approve. So they are also for self-aggrandizement. There's no checks and balances. There's no transparency going on now. But going into the future, I see a future that the youth will participate in governance, where they will have proper education and proper orientation, proper appraisal, so that the recruitment process will be proper, where the law works. Mm-hmm. Because it's the rule of law that is a kernel of everything. Okay. So in Nigeria, you see the law is always observed in the breach.
All right. I mean, it's been one amazing time with you, sir. I mean, we can go on and on with this leadership and followership topic, and we would never really exhaust all of it. And I'm sure that sometime later I would invite you for further discussion regarding this topic.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm always available. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Augustine Okoli is a policy and management development consultant, and in fact a former chairman of the National Orientation Agency.
Former state director.
Former state director of Orientation Agency here in Enugu State. Many thanks for your time again. We truly appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
We're back shortly after the break. Just stay with us.